On the chitin-covered heels of the impressive Witch Queen expansion and a relatively strong year of live service support overall, it seemed like Destiny 2 was finally gaining momentum as it headed toward the conclusion of its epic saga. Sadly, my optimism for a game I've put thousands of hours into has come crashing down like a Cabal drop pod after spending 80 hours with its latest expansion, Lightfall. The story is shockingly incoherent. The new destination on Neptune feels as lifeless as the real planet, and the passable endgame and seasonal activities have so few surprises they give me deja vu. Thankfully, there are a number of things Lightfall excels at as well, like the new Strand subclass, an awesome new Tormentor enemy, and some important quality of life improvements. Those are all excellent additions, but even Lightfall's best parts can't disguise this significant step backward. The opening moments of Lightfall are some of its best, as Destiny's long-awaited final villain, the Witness, arrives in our solar system to deal a blow against humanity and our allies. But any excitement is quickly swept into the vacuum of space as you're inexplicably redirected from the action to take part in a seemingly unrelated side quest in the Neptunian city of Neomuna that's low stakes and makes no sense.
The uglier they are, the harder they fall, right? No? Come on.
The events on Neomuna surround a MacGuffin called the Veil, a mysterious artifact that you're told is super important, but nobody ever tells you what it is or its purpose. Your enemy is Callus, a stack of pancakes cosplaying as an air fryer, who serves as the least intimidating antagonist in Destiny's history. As you wage war against an incompetent moron for control of an artifact you know nothing about, you'll also discover the dark powers of Strand, a green elemental subclass our heroes spend half of the campaign trying to figure out how to use in a process so dull they literally skip over some of it by giving you a Rocky-style training montage. Yikes.
We can overcome the impossible.
It's not just the campaign's plot that disappoints either. The levels themselves feel decidedly less unique or memorable than the Witch Queen. The interesting puzzles and diet raid mechanics featured in last year's campaign have been replaced with irritating battles taking place in an arena where you're often running in circles to survive, stopping to take shots here and there while you can. Instead of fighting interesting new enemies like the Light-Bearing Hive, Lightfall has you mostly fighting the same burly Cabal we've been at war with for 9 years, which have always been one of Destiny's less engaging adversaries. You'll be spending most of the campaign on the neon-soaked streets of Neomuna, a city that's been peculiarly hidden from the rest of the galaxy until now, yet houses massive buildings and technology that surpasses even that of Guardians during the Golden Age. Unfortunately, this setting is as flimsy as its lore, and is barren and lifeless despite supposedly thriving up until the recent Cabal invasion. Each area of Neomuna contains a handful of featureless buildings and plenty of Cabal and Vex enemies to battle, but little else to engage with aside from the standard fare of patrols and public events that we've seen in every Destiny location since 2014. Thankfully, the new Strand subclass does help ease the monotony of Neomuna, representing the biggest shakeup to Destiny's sandbox in a long while. The powers themselves aren't revolutionary to Destiny. You get a new melee ability, new supers for each class that all deal huge DPS, and some new buffs and debuffs to play with, like Suspend, which lifts enemies off the ground and entangles them. The main reason to pick Strand over other subclasses, though, is in its unmatched mobility, since by default it replaces your Guardian's grenade with a grappling hook that allows you to swing around the environment and pull yourself towards enemies to follow up with a devastating melee hit, both of which are a lot of fun. After spending dozens of hours optimizing my Strand builds on each of Destiny's 3 subclasses, I'm hooked. There's also one exciting new enemy for you to make use of Strand against, as Lightfall introduces the Tormentor, a warrior of the darkness who chases you around with a scythe, takes away your abilities with suppression powers, and can nearly one-shot you with his terrifying grapple attack. As the first true foot soldier of the darkness we faced after years of speculation, the Tormentor serves as a glimmer of hope for what I imagine will be a fully realized enemy faction once we finally face the Witness head-on. But for now, they're one of the only things to occasionally inject some needed freshness into a sandbox that's becoming a bit long in the tooth. They may be a little overused in the campaign for that reason, but they are still a genuinely fun new obstacle to overcome. Once you've completed Lightfall's campaign, you'll be greeted by the usual post-game quests that have followed all of Destiny's recent campaigns. Much of it requires mindlessly grinding uninteresting activities, like patrol missions on Neomuna to unlock a new exotic weapon or some additional options for the Strand subclass. That said, there are definitely some post-game activities worth checking out, like the weekly partition activity that had me racing against time across a Rainbow Road-esque floating track to defuse some bombs, or the new secret exotic quest that sent me on a virtual odyssey to claim a powerful new weapon. Per usual, these late-game treats represent the reason I've stuck with my fellow Guardians for so long, even when little else feels worth playing. That leads me to the awesome new raid, Root of Nightmares, which pits you and 5 friends against a series of tricky encounters that require precise teamwork and communication to overcome. Raids have long been some of the best content in Destiny, and this creepy journey through a ruined spacecraft that's been overrun with flora is no exception. It's not the best raid Destiny's ever had. It's somewhat brief, introduces few mechanics we haven't seen before, and has some sloppy design, like how the final boss flops about and sometimes gets stuck in places he's not supposed to. But with fantastic music, absolutely beautiful levels, and one particularly cool encounter where you have to work with your team to rearrange planets floating overhead, it's still an extremely fun time. Lightfall also arrives alongside some interesting quality of life improvements that make Destiny a noticeably smoother experience. Loadouts allow you to easily swap out your equipment for different activities. The new Guardian rank system serves as a roadmap directing players towards the next in-game feat they should focus on and lets others know your level of expertise with Destiny. And the mod system has been refined to be easier to navigate and allow for more customization. There's also a new commendation system that lets you give kudos to your fellow players and receive them in turn, which rewards good behavior in multiplayer across all of Destiny's activities by allowing players to earn a positive reputation over time. Still, even some of these welcome facelifts can come up a little short. For example, the loadout system allows you to pull items directly from your vault to be equipped immediately, but offers no way to send those items back to your vault when you no longer need them. That means your inventory quickly fills up with items as you switch loadouts, and you have to travel to the tower or use an out-of-game app to transfer your items. Exactly the kind of annoyance this feature is meant to prevent. The new Guardian rank also has a bit of a grind that seems quite unnecessary, like one step that requires you to get 750 commendations from other players, and much of your progress will apparently reset as new seasons and activities are added to Destiny, which would make much of the reputation system meaningless. That said, all of these things are at least promising additions that Destiny very much needed, and even though they're available to all players whether or not they bought Lightfall, it certainly made my time playing the new content more enjoyable. Destiny 2 Lightfall is a disappointing expansion with a campaign that falls flat on its face, an underwhelming new destination, and only a few new standout activities to take on. But Strand and the new Tormentor enemy are great additions to the sandbox, and some of the endgame activities, like as per usual the raid, are a blast. No doubt Lightfall's shortcomings are made more painful by immediately following the Witch Queen and its strong post-launch updates, which felt like Destiny 2 had finally overcome its storytelling woes and charted out a promising future for itself. After playing Lightfall, perhaps too fittingly given its name, that future doesn't look quite as bright. For more, you can read my full review on IGN.com or check out my review of The Witch Queen to hear what made it so impressive. And for everything else, stick with IGN.